Hi everyone, welcome to our Unspoken Rules for Mutters to Mutters, inspiring journeys of grad school experience, hosted by the Office of Career Services and the Office of Alumni and Parent Relations. My name is Alyssa Gee and I'm a career advisor and educator in the Office of Career Services. Today we have Maya Martinez, class of 2020, Chris Paniagua, class of 2021, and Hana Schiff, class of 2018, who will talk to us about their experiences in grad school. Our moderator today will be Maddie Reeve, class of 2026. This event will be recorded and shared on HMC's YouTube channel. We will take questions at the end of the event, but please feel free to submit questions in the Q&A box on Zoom for those of you at the viewing party. And then for those of you on campus, if you guys have any questions, just save them for the end and we will try and get through as many as we can. I will moderate the Q&A portion, but for now, I'll hand it over to Maddie.
Whoa, the whole table moved. Hi, everyone. My name is Maddie Reeve. I am a sophomore at Harvey Mudd studying math, and I also work as a peer consultant for the Office of Career Services, and I will be moderating today's panel. As an introduction, I just wanted to ask if our panelists can please share their names, their major while at Mudd, their graduate degree in school, and also current profession. If any of you want to go first, or I can call on you.
I can hop in. So my name is Chris Paniagua. I was an engineering major at Mudd. And then after that, I studied mechanical engineering in my master's coursework. And right now I just graduated last semester or last spring. And right now I'm a manufacturing engineer.
I can go next. Hi, I'm Maya. I was a physics major at Mudd, and then I got my master's in physics at Cal State Long Beach. And currently I am a graduate student getting my PhD in applied physics at Stanford.
Very cool. Okay, I guess I can go. My name is Hana. I graduated in 2018, which is crazy long time ago as of now. When I was there, I did an independent program of studies, which I don't know if that still exists at Mudd, but you were able to create your own major. And I made my major in a mixture of physics, chemistry, and biology, and it was officially called physical biochemistry. After I graduated from Mudd, I actually realized that I wanted to do more actual, just pure physics. So I ended up doing more school in Serbia, where my family is from. And I ended up getting a second undergraduate degree and a master's in Serbia. And now I'm doing my PhD in theoretical physics at UC Irvine.
Thank you. Our first question for the evening is, can you please describe your journey from graduating to Mudd to your current role? Why did you choose to go to grad school, and what were the pivotal moments that led you to where you are today? If anyone wants to take this question first.
I guess I can start it off again. I think me personally, it was a very big reason, I think why, which is I think very unique, is something happened with the pandemic. And so during that time, my entire sort of senior year was online, the Zoom University as we call it. And sort of coming off of senior year, I kind of felt a little bit, I guess, uneasy about jumping into the job market. My goal is to sort of go into industry. And so a big sort of motivation for me was how can I sort of, I guess, build a sort of transition period for myself. And I started looking at grad school as a way to do it. I was sort of looking at PhD programs and master's programs. And I decided that a master's program would be a sort of pretty good next step because it's sort of, I guess, not as much of a commitment as a PhD, only 2 years. And that way I could sort of complement my sort of general engineering degree from Mudd with a more sort of specialized mechanical engineering, something that sort of adds a little bit more flavor that sort of I wanted to do. And so that would hopefully, or I hope like it would sort of expand my sort of job opportunities later on after I graduated. And so I think that was a very big motivation for me on why I went the grad school route as opposed to straight into industry.
Thank you. And if we can hear from Maya about your journey.
Yeah, so my senior year at Mud, I was obsessed with research. Research was kind of like the hands-on fun, like problem solving that really got me excited about physics. And I didn't feel ready or really exactly knew what I wanted to do in terms of industry. So I thought, grad school must be the answer. But senior year, a lot of life was happening, aside from the pandemic that came that spring. And to be frank, like I was not a strong PhD program applicant. I did not feel confident I would get into and good programs. So what I did instead is I applied to a whole bunch of bridge programs. And I guess as a brief, what is a bridge program? A bridge program is exactly kind of what it sounds like. It's a program meant to bridge the gap between undergrad and PhD students, but in a more supportive way where you have mentoring and stuff like that. And bridge programs look very different. Sometimes they can be a year long, sometimes they can be 2. You can get your master's along the way, and that's the program that's the kind of program I participated in. So so after graduating from Mud, I joined the bridge program at Cal State Long Beach, and I got to do actually half because of the pandemic. I wasn't doing hands-on stuff right away. But eventually I did get to do a lot of that hands-on research that had brought me so much joy and before. And leaving or like looking ahead, PhD was still something I wanted to pursue. So yeah, halfway through my master's, I then applied to PhD programs and got into the school I am today. And I will say, like, at some point along the way, I thought my career in physics was over before it ever began because of my GPA leaving Mud, but that's not true. Like, it may take a little longer, but you can get to where you want to be. So just word of the wise. But yeah, that is my path. So.
That's great. And I think that's a great segue into my story also, because I too was really not confident that I would get into grad school if I applied straight out of Mud. And the reason is definitely my GPA. I had a very, very rough time, especially at the beginning of Mud. And I also thought that my career was over before it even started. It just felt like an enormous hole that I could never dig myself out of. But there really is a lot of hope. It's not the end of the world. And well, one of the reasons I wanted to do this panel also was to convey that message, just that, it's not over if you get some bad grades in undergrad. But I was also fortunate in that I just realized that research was really way more fun than doing problem sets, and that I could demonstrate my skills in ways that I never thought were possible until I got into a lab. So I'm really thankful for that opportunity at Harvey Mudd, and that was definitely a pivotal moment for me. So after having gone and done more school in Serbia, which was also a completely different system, which I thought was really great to sort of understand just more generally that education looks different in different places. I also realized that being good at something looks different on different people. And I kind of found what that looked like for me when I took a little bit of more time. So after doing my master's, well, I guess during my master's, I realized that I definitely do want to apply for a PhD program because I really, really love doing research. It's much more compatible with how I work. It's much more slow paced than doing a bunch of problem sets really fast. And that just suits me a lot better. So I applied. I still got rejected from 9 out of the 10 places that I applied. But the place that I did get in, which is UC Irvine, was my top choice. So it all worked out in the end. And I'm now a 3rd year here. And I'm quite happy. So.
Thank you all so much for sharing about that. Our next question is, what are some of the biggest differences between undergraduate and graduate education? And if this time we can start with Hana and go in the reverse order.
Sure. Okay, so when I was thinking about this question, there were three things that came to my mind. The first thing in graduate school, at least here at UC Irvine, it may be different in other places, is that nobody is going to make you work. At Harvey Mudd, we get really used to having a lot of deadlines and people, setting very rigid goals for the way that we're going to progress. And that sort of goes away in graduate school. You do have to take some classes, but many advisors, like the faculty, are often quite busy. They have a lot of stuff going on. They're not going to be lurking over your shoulder, checking on you to make sure that you're making your deadlines. So you sort of do have to develop a way to do that on your own. The second thing is that you won't also always have somebody to teach you the things. There won't always be a class in the skills that you need to know. So figuring out a way to study on your own, or like how to reach out for help to the people who do know, are very good skills to acquire. And the third thing is that community is very different outside of Mudd. It's such a blessing to get to be around all of the great people that Harvey Mudd has to offer. And it's not to say that other people outside of Mudd are not great, but people live far apart from each other, have all kinds of different interests. And I would highly recommend that you seek out opportunities to connect with people wherever you go, because it's just not the same as having all of the dorms right next to each other. So, yeah.
I guess that covered a lot, a lot of, but I guess to add on to that, another big difference I saw, the transition between undergrad and grad, is where priorities lie. So it's definitely going to shift from coursework to research. At the end of the day, your PI or the institution is paying you to be there. They're essentially, their job and your job is to get trained as a researcher in the field you're studying, right? So your emphasis, your priority is going to be on research and not coursework. And I guess kind of also along those lines is PhD programs and master programs are very different in terms of who is paying for what. So part of the bridge program, I was very lucky that the entire, my master's was paid for by the program. But that is not always the case. In fact, it's often not the case where someone is paying for your master's. And so that is often out of pocket sometimes. So that's what I have to contribute, yeah.
Yeah, I think I had similar experiences. I think myself being sort of a master's student, I think one thing I forgot to mention is that I did research at Mudd with Professor Leah Mendelson. And that was sort of also another thing that influenced me to go to grad school. But when I sort of applied, I applied as a master's student. And it wasn't until I was barely about to start that I was sort of approached to be the possibility of doing sort of a PhD program. And so during my time, I was actually kind of doing sort of PhD research alongside master's coursework. So it was kind of like a weird mix between the two. And I can definitely attest to the more priority on research versus coursework. But that kind of caused a little bit of some like dissonance between the two. I think a big thing from the coursework side, if you're sort of interested in doing a master's degree, is that I found that the courses are sometimes not as, I want to say, refined as in Mudd, because professors are much more focused on research and sort of doing research papers, publishing. They don't have, I guess, that much time to, I guess, put into courses. And so if that's sort of one thing that you are looking forward to, like coursework, I want to do like cool projects with other people sort of as my final project, as we sometimes did at Mudd, that kind of goes away because that gets transferred essentially over to your research. That's where sort of the cool hands-on teamwork stuff goes on.
Thank you. Our next question is, were there any moments of self-doubt or uncertainty along your journey? And did you receive any pushback or skepticism from others during pursuing your career path? And if so, how did you handle it? And what advice do you have to handle these setbacks?
I guess, yeah, I can go for it. I haven't gone first yet. So yeah, I guess I had kind of touched on it, right? Like, but leaving Mud, I really thought like, with this GPA, I can't do anything. It is over. And I'm very, very grateful that I don't know. So I did research with Sharon Gerbode, and she is wonderful. I love her so much. And she was a huge support in this process. And trying to figure out, okay, if the end goal is PhD, what do I need to do, to get there? And at the time, the big red flag in my application was my GPA. So she suggested, okay, it's not uncommon for people, to get their master's as like a stepping stone to the PhD, to dissuade any, worries programs may have about your academic background. And so that's kind of exactly what I did. So I went to Cal State Long Beach, even though the priority should have been on research. At times I kind of put my coursework above, because I needed to show, these PhD programs that I can, I have a handle on physics. I know my physics. I just don't have the undergrad GPA to back it. And I will also say, and I'm glad that PhD programs are moving away from the GRE system and requiring GRE scores, because at the time I also thought, I need a perfect score on the physics GRE to show them that I know how to do physics. That is not at all the case. I got in here without a physics GRE, with my crappy Mud GPA, but did very well, at Cal State Long Beach. And so, yeah, I guess that's the biggest, that was the biggest pushback, and maybe that pushback came from within. And I guess, yeah, the biggest pushback came from within. But Sharon was a huge, huge help in kind of convincing me that, like, no, if this is something you want to do, you can do it. It just, like I said, it might take a little bit longer to get there, but you can do it. And so, yeah.
I'm happy to go next. Okay, so I mean, I resonate a lot with a lot of what Maya said already. I guess for me, I definitely had what feels to me like a very long time of self-doubt, because my struggles and bad GPA at Harvey Mudd started immediately when I was a freshman. So that was following me throughout all 4 years that I spent there. And at least with regards to my time at Mudd, I had to do a lot of things. Like, one of them was just be really honest with myself about why exactly this was happening and sort of introspect. And I found that practice to be helpful even today, because even though I'm doing really a whole lot better now, I think I'm probably not even recognizable in the quality of work that I do now to what I was doing at Mudd. But even now, there are still times that I doubt myself, because I mean, the fact of the matter is that there will pretty much always be people around you, especially if you stay on the path of academia, who are, maybe, or at least look like they're doing better than you, who have more papers published, who have, taken more classes, who maybe went to a better institution. There's always some way that you can compare yourself to somebody else. And it's just normal. And there's no reason to let that get in the way of what you're doing. You just got to introspect and say, okay, what is it that I can be doing better? While I was at Mudd, I honestly just needed to sleep more. I needed to ask for a little bit more help. When I got into my second undergrad and my master's program, I, learned how to study more effectively by identifying that, like, for example, I would do things that I already knew how to do because it made me feel comfortable. I have to do things that I don't know how to do in order to get better. And this practice of just like introspecting of what is it that is holding me back? A lot of the times the answer was me. Just reflect on that and kind of move forward. So I would say constantly doubt. Lots of times it will seem like you're maybe not as good as you would want to be, or you'll get rejected from stuff, but just don't let it stop you. I mean, if you really like what you're doing, and if you have an idea of what you want to do, just go for it. You can definitely do it.
Yeah, I think I echo the sentiment of at Mudd, everything was just like beyond tough. Coming from high school was such a big, I guess, I don't know, kind of just like hit in the face of how fast and how difficult the concepts were. And then to make it worse, I was one of those people that I would always fall asleep in class, no matter what I did, even like unhealthy things like drinking an energy drink at like 8 a.m. It would just like, I would just always like black out in the middle of class. And that sort of led me to look for help in things such as office hours or Tau Beta Pi. I forgot what the other one was, AE tutoring or something. I still remember those times, and just reaching out for help, and looking to see that I'm not the only one struggling. Like we're all sort of, I guess, in the same, I guess, struggles. That really sort of pushed me to, I guess, feel a little bit more comfortable that okay, it's fine that I don't get these things right now. Both reaching out to other people, I can sort of get better understanding. And maybe in the end, I'm not going to 100% get these things, but it's fine because I took in maybe 70% of them. And after going through mud, sort of with that sort of mentality of, okay, can I get sort of big ideas? It's fine if these other little things come in later. I'll be honest, going to grad school, I kind of felt a little bit more relief, or the coursework, the load wasn't almost even close to what mud was pushing me through. And so I guess keep in mind that even if you feel you're doing bad at mud, you might be doing like excellent at somewhere else or something. Because bare minimum at mud is kind of already pushing you beyond a lot of other programs. So I think yeah, just it's okay to feel down. You'll get through it.
Thank you for that advice. Our next question is, how have your personal values shown up in your work and career trajectory? Have there been times when you felt a strong alignment or misalignment between your work and values, and how did you navigate these times?
Happy to hop in. Oh, sorry, Chris. I was going to say, well, the things that align are I do really love research, and I'm very happy that I get to spend a lot of my time doing that. But I do also like to teach, and I like doing things with my department that sort of, I don't know, I guess sort of shift a little bit the culture of physics, which I've not always found to be the most friendly. So these are all things that I enjoy, that I think the setting of academia is like a good setting to do these in. I'm not sure how well I would be able to accomplish all three of those things if I were in industry right now. I might still go into industry, but it's not exactly what I'm looking at the most. But for things that are in misalignment with my values, I really greatly dislike that elitism is just pervasive across every form of graduate school that I've seen. And unlike the kind of conversation that we're having here, challenges are really highly stigmatized. People don't often like to expose the fact that they have been struggling on the same problem for months, or that they did not get accepted into a postdoc program or something like that. And one of the final thing that I feel very strongly about, and still don't know what exactly to do about it, is that at least in my field of physics, a lot of our funding comes from places that I don't support. And that is quite a challenge to navigate, because sometimes you will be in the position to say, no, I'm not going to accept this grant, or I'm not going to apply for this grant that I do kind of need in order to get a paycheck, because I'm not willing to take money from those sources.
I can hop in here. Yeah, I think at Mud, a really big thing that I think was most sort of educational wasn't really the STEM classes, but the humanities aspect of it. All the humanities courses I was exposed to, I think really helped me to, I guess, be more conscious about how to be an engineer in today's society, I think as the mission statement says. And I think in high school, I kind of knew like, okay, don't be like a rude or bad person. But it wasn't until Mud where I really sort of started seeing like what are the consequences of what we do and who we are. And on a very high level, that's sort of one thing, but even on the very smallest level, which is like, yeah, don't be rude to other people. Don't treat other people as just kind of like tools or whatever. That was something that at Mud, that was like just the bottom line. Everyone treated each other with respect and were very willing to help each other. Jumping into grad school, I kind of did. It was kind of weird that that kind of went away. Something so small is kind of not found in a lot of other places, and it kind of felt weird. Like I guess not that I wasn't treated with respect, but kind of just I didn't feel that sort of homey feeling that Mud sort of tended to produce, and so me personally, I tried to recreate it to spread it to the other people. That way to treat each other not just like as coworkers, but maybe sort of as friends, or simply just being able to, I guess, connect with other people and not being too distant or cold with each other. Um, I think that sort of helps change, or that sort of helped change grad school from feeling like a job to feeling again more like what um, Harvey Mudd, I guess, would be an undergraduate college. And that was sort of a really big thing that I noticed, that even something that, as small as that is sort of not as easily found.
I guess the biggest alignment I can see in my values is, this like pure curiosity for like I'm an experimentalist, right? Research and like wanting to get into the lab and like really, get your hands on like a difficult problem or wiring up something very, very delicate. Um, and like I've received a lot of encouragement for that. But I think the biggest like misalignment in values I've noticed so far in transitioning from undergrad and to grad school is in undergrad, students were always encouraged to, or at least I always felt encouraged to, do things outside of coursework and research. Like I was an AE tutor, or I was super involved. I was the president of our Women in Physics club, right? At Mud. In grad school, at least I found you have to be careful about how and who you share this information about how you're spending your extracurricular times. And the discussion around, outreach is changing. Um, and like it is important to identify areas where, maybe we're lackluster in retention and we need to talk about what's going on there. But still, at the end of the day, I've spoken to some friends who won't share with their PI, how they're also on the local organizing committee for this conference that they're planning for undergraduate women in physics, right? Or this and that. And so I just remember that being so much more of an open conversation at Mud, whereas it's kind of more keep to yourself, like what you do on your own time, because if it is taking up too much time, it is taking you away from research at the end of the day. And so, and again, it varies from PI to PI, from advisor to advisor, and from school to school. But this was kind of like a shock to me when I first came to grad school. It's like, oh, whoa, okay, so I need to maybe not be so open about what I do outside of research and how it may impact my ability to do research. So yeah.
Thank you. Our next question is, how has networking and building relationships played a role in your career and graduate school experience?
I can go first. To be frank, I'm an introvert. I am not one to network at all. um, I remember when I was applying to PhD programs, I always like, do we cold email professors? Like, is that a thing we do? Like, And I always got different answers like, yes, you should, or no, you shouldn't. And at the end of the day, I think in terms of relationships that were helpful to me in getting to where I am today, it kind of came down to like previous, for example, like research projects I had done. So I did an REU this summer between my junior and senior year at MUD. And then I created that kind of like relationship. I did my REU was at Cornell. So I often then asked my advisor from that REU for a letter, for advice, and stuff like that. Or for my master's, I, again, just like I did, or I also referred back to my advisor at undergrad, Sharon, and my master's advisor, both, and my REU advisor for help in applying to grad school. So unless like that relationship was already there, had been made kind of for me, I'm not the biggest networker. So that's me though. So.
Yeah, I think same here. Definitely the more introvert type. Um, the sort of biggest connections I made at MUD were between my professors, and usually it's because I went to office hours to just sort of ask questions about the homework or about concepts. And I found that because I was going so much, I was on a more, like a sort of conversation level. And I think professors at MUD are generally open to conversation, but me, I was kind of scared or something. But I felt more comfortable being able to share sort of my thoughts or about sort of what I wanted to do and sort of ask questions about what did they think or what were their experiences like in grad school or outside of grad school. Um, and so being able to talk with my MUD professors was really, I guess, the most of the networking I did. And it was sort of also like some sort of, I guess, support system that sort of helped me decide sort of what am I going to do next.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if this question is meant to like refer to networking during our time at MUD or like after our time at MUD. I definitely I'm also more on that introverted boat. I wouldn't call myself a natural networker. Um, at MUD, I did end up having connections to a variety of faculty just because my major was split amongst 3 departments. So Sharon Gerbode was actually my advisor for my IPS. She was very wonderful. But I did not do research with her. I did research with Tom Donnelly in physics. I also did research with Professor Van Hecke, of all people, in the chemistry department, and with Liz Orwin in engineering. And so they were all very helpful, I would say, in like making decisions about grad school, getting advice or like what to do, given the position I found myself in with my GPA and wanting to explore more physics. However, since coming to grad school, since doing my PhD, I found that networking is more important, unfortunately. But usually this mainly happens, I don't really go out of my way to do it. It's just that when I go to conferences, I do try to make a point of talking to at least one person. And I was able to give a talk at a conference. And by giving that talk and then talking to somebody who was interested in my research, I now have a collaborator in German. So that's really exciting. So I guess the way that networking played a role in my career is that it gave me a really cool research project that I'm working on right now. So yeah, I think I will say one more thing about that. I mean, I guess this is like thinking really, really ahead of time, especially for somebody who is at MUD right now. But I'm told that if you do intend on going the route of academia all the way, and you would like to pursue a PhD, a standard thing, at least in physics, is to do 1 postdoc, at least, if not 2 or more. The thing about postdoctoral positions, which are research positions after your PhD, is that they are not advertised online like most things. Like you can't just apply to a postdoc like you apply to a graduate school. These are often spread by word of mouth. So what I am told as like a middle of the PhD student is that networking is really useful for that, because you will hear from faculty at other universities that there is a postdoctoral position open, and you directly reach out to these people. So supposedly it matters.
Thank you so much. Our next question is, what do you see for your future career path? Do you ever consider changing to a different type of role or industry?
I can start us off here. I think right now I'm definitely sort of at a weird crossroads. I've managed to find a job after grad school, after my master's, but it's something that I wasn't too eager to do. And I just started, but moving forward, I think I'm definitely open or wanting to move on to something else. Um, Coming from MUD, from the general engineering degree, I think I was exposed to a lot of different things, and I like a lot of different things, but it's hard to focus in on one little thing, especially in industry. And so right now, I'm very much still figuring out what is it exactly I want to do. Um, Getting my master's in mechanical engineering definitely narrowed it down, but now I have, I guess, a variety of mechanical engineering things that I like to do. And so moving forward, I think it's still kind of a learning process as to what do I want to do, and also where can I move to, where am I going to end up. And I think it's a little bit scary, but I think being aware that um, this sort of growing process almost never stops, even after grad school, whether I think you do a PhD or just a master's. I think keeping your mind open to change, I think it's going to make it a little bit easier to navigate where to go.
I will say, I think one, not one of the bigger things, but one of the more appealing things about grad school is I don't have to make any big decisions for a while. Um, so I'm a second year, I'm in my second year. And so truly right now, I don't have like a dream job. Like I want to be a professor. I'm kind of, I am open to what like life has in store. Like I could see myself being happy working at a national lab, for example. I love research. I love doing hands-on stuff. That would be great. But also I really do like to teach, you know, is like being a professor something I want to do, but academia, is that somewhere I want to stay? You know, so it's I don't know what I want to do. And since I've never been to the Bay, I'm in the Bay. Wow, there's so many job opportunities up here, right? So that I guess that's one of the things I like about grad school, specifically PhD program, is that you don't have to have it all figured out right now. Even then, you could do a postdoc and still not have it all figured out then. So yeah, I guess I don't know what I want to do right now. And I keep reminding myself, I'm like, that is a problem for future Maya. That is not what this current Maya needs to worry about right now. So yeah.
Yeah, I think great answer so far. I came into a PhD thinking that I wanted to be a professor. I think I still do want to be a professor, but I am more suspicious of academia the more time I spend in it. And like just briefly, the reasons are that you kind of, while research is your main job, it appears at least as though the farther along the academia route you actually may end up having less and less time to do research, because there's other bureaucratic things to do, a lot of paperwork, gotta apply for grants, and you have to do all kinds of other things, which are maybe not the most fun things. I'm also not a fan of the publish or perish mentality that plagues all of academia across the globe. That being said, I'm not really sure how much better it can get really outside of academia. So I am exploring options in industry. And if you do end up pursuing a graduate program, I would highly recommend like taking advantage of any opportunities to learn things about industry at your graduate program. So often there will be like people coming from various jobs, explaining what the job is like. There's workshops for figuring out what industry is like. Part of the question was like, I think, do we ever consider drastic changes or something like that? There is one drastic change that I've considered, and I've obviously not made any decisions yet, but I would kind of consider changing from like a research focused position into more science communication. I really love science communication. And it kind of goes back to the loving teaching and sort of changing, or at least trying to change the culture of physics to be a little bit more friendly and welcoming. So that is something that I consider. And I was fortunate last year to be able to work for my department. They paid me to run the social media account for UC Irvine Physics, which is super fun. So we'll see.
Thank you. That was very interesting to hear about all of your different experiences. And another question is, with the knowledge and experience you have now, what advice would you tell your younger self? And would you change anything about your time at MUD or your time since MUD?
I can jump in and start this one. Well, I don't think that I have any regrets, even though it was quite a time. I think my biggest advice is honestly just to get more sleep and take better care of your mental and physical health. There's just no replacement for it. Like exhaustion doesn't go away. I always call it sleep debt. It's very hard to pay off sleep debt. But aside from those like health related priorities, which should be the number one priority, I would say a big piece of advice, at least for me, coming from physics and wanting to do more theory type things, I would say don't rush into the big ideas. You know, like the really exciting classes that you're so excited about when you come in to college. Don't rush to them. Focus on the foundations. At least in my experience, if you do end up pursuing a PhD or in graduate school, you kind of don't often have the time to just really focus on those fundamental things ever again. And it's not like doom, like you'll never be able to go back and study the thing that you didn't understand as an undergrad. You will, but like this is the time to like get really good at that. And there will be plenty of time for the fun and exciting classes. Like as a physics person, you know, taking quantum for the first time is so exciting. And like, I know that most people would love to take that as early as possible, but my advice is don't do that.
I guess advice I'd share with my younger self is frankly to be more forgiving. Oftentimes, like, you know, we're so nice and patient and forgiving with our friends, right? But we need to be as nice and patient and forgiving with ourselves. And like back to what I was saying before, like I was the person holding myself back the most, and really I needed to give myself more credit for what I was doing and what was happening during that time. Like I half my master's was entirely online. I did not see the campus until a year into the program. like 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 you guys did it. You guys got into undergrad during a pandemic, you know, like be more forgiving, give yourself the credit where credit's due. And I guess the other big thing that a mentor of mine recently told me is that you guys are students now, and if you decide to pursue graduate school, even then, and as students, it is the time and possibly the last time where you can be selfish, like truly selfish. Like your only job is to learn stuff. That's it. Like it after school, you know, like it's this opportunity where like all you can spend all your time just doing research or coursework or, you know, being selfish with your time, like it goes away. And so like really, you know, take advantage of that. That's something I've been reminding myself, like, this is the last time I'll ever be able to take a GR. Even though it is not at all related to what I'm doing, I'm currently, you know, struggling through general relativity just because I wanted to take it, and I'm curious about it. So yeah.
Yeah, I think a piece of advice I would give myself is kind of put myself out there a little bit more. I kind of did tend to, I guess, stick to coursework and kind of make sure I was trying to keep up with a lot of things. So a lot of events such as this one or other events, I kind of didn't really pursue. And so I think I missed out on a lot of growth opportunities. So I think I definitely tell myself to, I guess, chase after stuff like that a little bit more. And it's not kind of just the academic side, but also just the personal fun side. I think um, definitely, I think I should have dedicated a little bit more time to, I guess, what's fun at Mud, what sort of what party is going on, or where can I go visit this weekend. I think those are things that I should have done as well as sort of also sort of personal time and being able to maintain, I guess, my mental health as well. So just I think taking risks, whether it be for the sake of my future or the sake of my current sort of enjoyment, I think is one thing I would have told myself to do.
Thank you. Our last question is if you have any final words of advice to give to students at MUD. Many of you just kind of shared a lot of advice from MUD students that I'm sure all of us, well, I find it helpful. So if you have any other pieces of advice, feel free to share them now. And if not, I will pass it to Alyssa for the Q&A portion of today's session.
I think yeah, kind of we kind of already mentioned it, but I think a big piece is enjoy the time you have at Mud. Love. I think regardless of whatever you do after Mud, it's not going to be Mud anymore, and I think that is that's something that makes sense when I was at Mud. Yeah, of course it's not going to be Mud anymore, but it kind of doesn't hit you until it's there, and it hits you like a truck. So I think definitely enjoy every little piece of Mud that you have left, even the super small things like getting chicken quesadilla at Jay's place. I hope they still make those there. That was so good at 2 a.m. But definitely, I think just try to take it all in with whatever time you have left.
I guess something that I wish someone had told me while I was at Mud is that everything is relative. And Chris had kind of touched upon this. Like, you already are like part of the cream of the crop at Harvey Mudd College. And once you leave that mud bubble, you kind of get like a better sense of reality and like where you stand. I remember in my first semester in my master's program, like, whoa, like the expectations are totally different. And so in that sense, it gets back to what I was saying before, is like be kind to yourself and recognize that you really are amongst, you know, like the best of the best where you are right now at Harvey Mudd College. And like take it all with like perspective in that like you are doing well. You're doing very well. You're doing great. So that's something I wish someone had told me while I was at Mud, that like there were times I'm like, I'm the bottom of the barrel, you know, but it is not at all true in the slightest. So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything that you guys have said so far. And yeah, I also felt like I was bottom of the barrel a lot of times, but it's just so not true. And I think it's not really advice, but I don't know how each person comes about making themselves believe this statement, but I would say trust in yourself that you can do it and you deserve to be there, whether it's at Mud or whatever your next step is. And sometimes it just really doesn't feel that way. But trust me, you definitely are doing very well, just like, you know, Maya and Chris have already said. Yeah, I really don't have any more advice. I think both Maya and Chris said it so perfectly already. Yeah, just get more sleep. I'll say it for the third time.
Thank you so much. I'm going to turn it over to Alyssa.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. If you are in our Zoom audience, go ahead and feel free to type in your questions into the Q&A chat. Right now, I'll ask if our in-person audience has any questions. Yes.
I wanted to ask how they picked grad schools.
Yeah, absolutely. That actually goes with one of our pre-submitted questions as well. So the question was, in case you weren't able to hear, was how did you find schools that you were interested in? And then how did you end up ultimately picking the school that you're at now?
I think for me, I definitely applied to a lot of schools that had, I guess, research labs that were doing projects that I was interested in. Personally, I sort of like footwear engineering, working with sort of athletes or even just non-athletes on how to support the biomechanics of someone using sort of footwear. And there was sort of, that's sort of how I looked up schools, is what research labs out there are doing that sort of thing. And so I applied to a lot of schools in that way. But as a master's student, it was very hard to find sort of ways to pay for school. So in the end, I definitely sort of went the way of, okay, which one is gonna, I guess, offer me something that I'm interested in, while also not being too much of a financial burden. And that's sort of how I ended up at my grad school, UT Dallas. It's sort of close to where I live. So I figured, okay, I can hopefully lean on my parents to sort of squat at their house or something while I'm doing grad school. Um, and it wasn't until I was about to start, or in the summer before, I was approached about the possibility of working in a research lab, because they sort of have a project that was similar to my interests. And so it kind of worked out in the end that, hey, I found a school that's sort of low cost and they have something I'm interested in. So I think a mix of sort of financial and interest is kind of what led me to the school I went to.
So for my master's, it was kind of I'm gonna apply to a whole bunch of programs, and it's different for the bridge program because at least through the American Physical Society APS, they have this a bridge program in it itself where you submit one application, and then they share it with 50 other institutions. That was super helpful because then um, there were only two, I only got two yeses from there. And because of the pandemic, I ended up choosing the one, kind of along similar lines what Chris is saying, where I could live at home and then just commute to school when that time came around because it was the pandemic. But that was that. But for PhD programs, I had a lot of conversations with my undergrad advisor and with my master's advisor to see, okay, I'm interested in these areas of research. What are, stretch programs, safety schools, and then reasonable schools that fit for my background, what I bring to the table. And so at the end of the day, it came down to two schools, and I chose based off of location. If I'm like location is a big deal, and so I wanted to be close enough but far enough from home. So that was the deciding factor for my PhD program. So.
For me, so okay, so I ended up going to Serbia in the first place because I have family there, and aside from my GPA woes, I did want to live there at some point while I was still like a young, relatively young person. So that was why I moved to Serbia. The school there is also free, so that was a huge factor in me deciding to do more school there. So I did some more undergrad there, and I did my master's degree there. And I sort of accidentally fell into the research that I ended up doing for my master's, which turned out wonderfully. So, and I really liked it. So knowing what research I was interested in when I was applying for graduate schools, I basically just had like a really big spreadsheet open where I would list, like I was just going through basically a list of all of the schools in the United States and some even outside of the United States, looking at their physics programs and looking sort of in that area of interest. And if they had at least two professors that I was interested in working with, I put them down on the spreadsheet. For me, it was really important that I have more than one option of who to work with when I applied to graduate school, because I mean, your advisor is somebody that you're going to work with for like a long time, and they kind of make or break the experience in a lot of ways. So I just wanted to make sure that if I don't like one of the advisors, I have the option to switch to somebody else. That's not a priority for everyone. For me, that was a priority. So I basically just made a big list like that from Google searches. I did end up cold emailing a bunch of professors. Some of them told me, don't do that. Why are you emailing me? And some of them were really nice and had Zoom calls with me. Yeah, and then everything from there is just doing the standard, writing your essays, business, paying the fee.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We'll squeeze in one more question before the hour is up. But did any of you have familial pressure to either go to grad school versus go to industry, or any other outside pressures either which way when making your decision? And how did you navigate that?
I'm going to say no, I didn't, just because my mic was still on. I did not have any pressure. It was totally up to me. And yeah, so my decision was just, I like doing research. Let me try to keep doing that.
I guess, yeah, I didn't have any familial pressure. If anything, it was more of a like, the pandemic is happening. I don't want to figure out what the next steps are. I've been going to school for forever. Let's continue that a little bit longer. Yeah, so yeah, I can't speak to familial pressures, but that was kind of I knew a PhD was something I was interested in doing, but kind of sealing the deal was the pandemic. So.
Yeah, I definitely didn't feel familiar pressures. But I kind of did feel sort of an implicit pressure of sort of, I come from a low income family, so being able to get like a shiny engineering job is definitely something that feels like a pressure, because I guess my parents' main investment is myself. So it's kind of weird to have that sort of weigh down. And I think that's a very like driving motivation for why I want to do industry. Um, but yeah, the pandemic really, I think it made me realize, hey, this sort of grad school route is also still pretty cool. And even if you spend, I don't know, a minimum of 5 years in a PhD program, that's still like a very short amount of time compared to the rest of your life. So I think recognizing that even the world feels like ending, it's kind of not going to end just yet, was something that I had to wrap my head around.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And with that, we are at time for tonight's event. So I wanted to say thank you again to our panelists for sharing your experiences and wisdom. And thank you to all of our attendees in person and on Zoom. We will be sending out an email with the YouTube link and contact information for all of our panelists. If you have any questions about career-related events, please contact career_services@hmc.edu. Thank you again to our panelists and our moderator, Maddie. Take care, everyone, and have a good evening.